I saw significant increase in people writing, we are in an AI bubble. This is super dangerous, like the dot-com bubble.
Is it only a bubble if it bursts or not? Right? Because the reason we talk about the dot-com bubble is because it burst. This is a national security matter. We are confiscating your model. You have to keep in mind, right? They did this in the 90s, right? GPS technology was invented in the 80s by DARPA and the United States Defense.
Do you know where the word idiot is stemming from? It's from a Greek word, idiotus. And that stands for somebody who is on his own.
But just because the masses agree on something doesn't make it true.
No. Welcome back, buddy. It's good to see you.
Welcome back. Yeah, it's good to see you. It's even better to be back making amazing newsletters for our audience. So welcome back, audience, as well.
Good to see you again.
Welcome back, everybody. It's been a wonderful summer. We've enjoyed it. We hope you've enjoyed it. Both me and Patrick have been on a little trip to a different planet, aka known as Japan. The closest you can go to another planet on planet Earth.
Absolutely. What an amazing trip that was, right? It's just, and we have to talk a lot about Japan, Aragon, for two reasons. One, it is amazing. There's a lot of things on my mind that I need to share. And secondly, I spent all the time in Japan and didn't look in all the latest and greatest AI news. So
yeah, Patrick completely disconnected. Like he just plugged out of the matrix. Unfortunately, I was less successful at that. The good news is that means that we've got a lot of topics today to discuss, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. But let's start.
I needed to do that, Aragon. It's the work that we do is so intense, and there's so much updates 24/7. And now more than ever, I felt, well, I really need to get off grid for 3 weeks and just sense life from a different angle. And I'm really glad I did that. Yeah. And Japan is a good country for that. I thought in the beginning it would be a very high tech kind of environment that you step into, right? There are some high-tech things, but the way that society is structured is very mindful. And so even on a very crowded subway station where hundreds of people are walking, nobody is shouting, nobody is pushing. Everybody is kind of feeling that they have to behave in a certain friendly way. So different from Central Station here in Rotterdam or in Amsterdam, where everybody just pushes, standing in line, standing in front of each other. And that just gives me so much rest. It was a great experience, and I'm really wondering why we cannot do something like that here in the Netherlands.
Yeah, well, you're touching on some interesting stuff. So before I went to Japan, I actually looked in, like, what should I know about Japan? And one of the things that I saw was, like, if you're going into the public transport, it's getting very busy at times. So what you see online where people are actually pushing each other to get into the metro system, that you're going to really experience is that. And the funny thing is I've never experienced that. Now,
no. Far from it, actually.
Yeah, so now I'll say this. Yes or no, I should say, I haven't really traveled in Tokyo during rush hour. Yeah. And it was summer holidays. So I'm certain that will have some impact there. Having said that, I am completely with you. And the core of my experience has been that I've never been to a country where people are more mindful of each other, more respectful in the public space. Yeah. And the best example of that is that there's no trash bins. There's no trash bins anywhere or nowhere. And if that would be the case in Europe or the United States, 100% certain, what you would find is you would find a massive garbage heap everywhere. There would just be garbage everywhere on the street, like in India, basically. And yeah, it's hard to, it's not nice to say that, but Indian cities are like that. But there isn't. And the reason for that is that nobody will throw their stuff on the ground. And if there's no bin, what they will do is they will carry it with them until they find a bin or a place in a restaurant or at home to throw their garbage away. That is how mindful and respectful people are of the public space. Yeah. And
just for instance, for when you're in the subway, everybody is on their mobile phones, right? Same here. So that's the same thing. But here, people listen to YouTube on their speaker or have a conversation over a speaker, just talking like that, and the entire wagon can enjoy the conversation. Yeah. That is not happening there. Everybody is, like you say, mindful of their environment, mindful of the other people.
Yeah. And in fact, if you do make a phone call, not always, obviously, but if you do make a phone call, on 2 occasions I've seen that somebody was making a phone call in the train, and on one occasion the conductor came by and asked them politely in Japanese to step out of the cabin and do the phone call somewhere else. And in another situation, there was a American guy actually pointing out to this person that it was rude of them to talk loudly and make a phone call in the cabin. And so what you see is that although there's definitely people there, and in my experience, unfortunately, it was the foreigners mostly that are disrespectful of the culture and the norms. At the same time, you see that people that come there like you and me, who are very mindful of this kind of thing, we actually got even more motivated to pay attention to that kind of thing, right? I was a better version of myself in Japan, 100%, because I felt that, I just felt that the whole atmosphere called for that. And wanted me to be that. Now, for me,
that's how quickly really normalized to something new, right? And I also picked up, if occasionally you do see a small paper on the street, and then you pick it up, it's just out of place.
Yeah. Exactly. It feels out of place. It feels wrong, and it feels like you should do something about it because it's a rare occasion rather than the standard. Because in the Netherlands, I do that too, right? I actually do that, but very often I do it, and then I walk 10 meters further, and I see another thing, and then another thing, and then I'm like, I can't keep picking up everything.
Right,
I mean,
if it becomes a full-time job.
It becomes a full-time job. And
what I also notice is an extremely high level of hygiene, which is also very sophisticated and very, very civilized, right? So everybody knows you have to take off your shoes and when you go in there, and all the hotel rooms are like that. But also if you go to a public restroom, right? I've never seen this clean, this civilized public restrooms. I counted a couple even where they have towels, linen towels, like we have in a Michelin star restaurant. On a public bathroom. You just pick a towel, put it in a bag, and somebody else has put a new towel there in place. On a public bathroom, I still cannot... That's unthinkable here, right?
It's unthinkable. And it's not just that there's public bathrooms in public that are open, that are free, that are clean, where you have actual towels and somebody's taking care of that. It's that if you go in any major city, you only have, and even in villages, I've seen interesting things, but in a major city, you don't have to walk longer than 30 seconds and you'll find a public toilet, right? There's no reason. And I've not, so if you go to Europe, to any city, if you go to Asia, to many cities, especially in for example, Thailand or Vietnam or whatever, a place like that, or Borneo, or you will 100% guaranteed be walking outside in the street and you will smell some really bad smells. And urine will be one of those, because in some alleyways, people have been urinating. In Japan, that did not happen. Yes, I have had an occasion where I smelled like maybe some food or a garbage bin that was out, where maybe they threw some meat in, and it's 36 degrees Celsius, right? So it's super hot. So obviously, that kind of thing can happen. But in general, I rarely smelled an unpleasant smell and never smelled urine. So everything is clean. Everything's so goddamn clean.
Yeah. And we're talking cities here, right? This is in a city. And Tokyo, I don't know how many people work or live there, maybe 30 million. That's twice what we have in the Netherlands.
37 million in the greater Tokyo area, 14 million in the Tokyo central, the Tokyo downtown. So there's almost as many people in Tokyo downtown as in the entire Netherlands. Yes? Yeah. And twice as, or almost 3 times as many in the Tokyo greater area. And this is an area that you can traverse from one side to the other in about 2 hours with the public transportation system, right? The complete area. So, yeah.
And then another thing that just blew my mind is the level of detail and time that they spend for every transaction. So if you're in a store and you purchase something and the cashier just takes the time to wrap it properly, to make sure that the payment is correctly, that they give great service. But also if you go somewhere for a cup of coffee, okay, downside is you have to wait 5 minutes for your cup of coffee, but you get a good cup of coffee. And that goes for everything. That's why the food is so great, right? Everybody knows, of course, that the food is good. I was thinking, well, maybe only the sushi is good and the Japanese kitchen, but they can bake perfect bread as well. They have perfect coffee. Basically, everything that we have consumed was top notch.
Yeah,
well prepared with attention for detail.
That's it. There's so much attention to detail, and there's so much dedication to delivering a great product. And I think you might want to tell the story, because there are some downsides to that. It also means because they dedicate themselves to a certain level of quality, they dedicate themselves to very, very strict routines. And if you step outside of that, you will have less good experience. Like you have an example, but I also saw, for example, in the train. In the train, there was a super, super, super busy train, right? And so there was an area with reserved seats. So this area is not that all the seats are reserved. This area is for people with a reserved seat. And so if there's 100 seats in that part of the train, then they will sell 100. They will make available for that train 100 reserved seats, right? But not all those seats are bought and taken. So what happened is that I was in the train and half of the reserved seats were free and I didn't even sit down. But a mother with her child sat down, which I think is perfectly acceptable. And in the Netherlands, if it was first class and it's a hot day and there's a full train, the conductor would say, whatever. But the moment they sat down, a conductor came from the other side of who was sitting behind the window, stood up, and she politely told them that they were not allowed to sit there and they had to go outside the cabin because these are reserved places. So they're so extremely strict on stuff.
Yes, and for sometimes so everybody knows Japanese like robotics, and this is going to sound blunt, and I don't mean it in that, but sometimes they behave like robots as well. Yeah. So there was one time we had booking for a museum, and it was an 11-hour slot, and I approached the lady with the fingers, and it was 10:59. 10:59, and I approached the ticket, and she said, "We open at 11." She asked me to stand over there, just 2 meters across from the opening, and at 1 minute later, I was allowed to go in. Yeah, that is unthinkable here, right? It is simple. And then the other story that you probably are referring to was also we were flabbergasted. So we with the whole family we bought sandwiches and all kind of different breads, croissants, etc. And we wanted to eat them directly. So we go to the cashier and she started packing that. But she put everything in a plastic. There's a lot of plastic over there. Yeah. And everything in a plastic. And we go like, hey, too much plastic. And we're going to eat it away. Don't do it. Yeah. And she just couldn't grasp the concept of not wrapping it in plastic. She was literally in panic, especially when we pushed saying, no, we want the plastic. No, please, don't do the plastic.
Yeah, you want something.
There's complete error, mental error. Yeah. And after a couple of days, in Japan, weeks, I should say, you see these type of cracks also. Yeah. And that kind of, because it's not all sunshine, sometimes the critical thinking, and we love critical thinking. Yeah. That is sometimes a price that is getting paid in this whole system thinking
there's no flexibility.
Hierarchy.
Yeah, there's very little flexibility. They really struggle with being presented with uncharacteristic or a situation or providing a custom solution. They just don't do that. So they dedicate to doing something a million times exactly the same way, making it possible to do the perfect product. But if you want something that's slightly different, then that doesn't work. Yeah. And it's interesting because I would like to shimmy kind of, because this is a great experience, but this is the innovation newsletter. So it's not without reason that we talk about our experience in Japan. And I would like to stress that because you can illustrate for yourself, but for me, one of the reasons I went to Japan, or a few of the reasons, have to do with innovation. Because one, Japan was the most technologically advanced country in the world at the end of the 90s, starting of the 2000s. And there are many reasons, and we could go into that. But they got stuck there, and now they haven't moved forward. And I wanted to understand why that is. Because I wanted to understand what can bring a super technologically advanced civilization to the point where suddenly they just don't make any progress anymore. And that was one thing. Why did they stop innovating? Because that is the thing. You go to Japan, you feel like an alternate reality of this universe. Because you feel like you're in a country where somehow they were super advanced technologically, way ahead of the rest of the world. But then suddenly it stopped. And so you'll be there and you'll be in a situation. For example, cash is a great example. The way they handle cash here is so super advanced. But then you're like, wait, we don't use it anymore back home. You know what I mean? So the way they handle something that's outdated over here is super advanced, but then you realize like we don't even use it anymore. And when you feel like you're in an alternate reality, like you could be in a world where in Europe we still had cash and we're doing it exactly the way Japan does it.
Is that the price of success that they had economically and technologically in the end of the last century? So we are on a high point. We have the systems in place. This is the way of working. And with their, let's say, culture of falling in line to your superiors who are telling what is the best thing to do, it kind of locked out of innovation. on a scale that we currently see, for instance, in China. Is that the analysis?
Well, obviously, I can't say 100% for certain, but what I do believe is that there's a few things that converged. One, economic collapse, right? Because Japan was forced in the 90s to make some serious changes because they basically were too cheap. And because they were so cheap, they were outcompeting the United States and Europe. So the United States specifically, but together with Europe, they forced Japan to take a different economic route, which made the Japanese yen significantly more expensive initially, right? And this led to products becoming very expensive, and this led to a massive economic bubble collapsing in Japan, which they have not recovered from to this very day, which ultimately led to their massive inflation, which they've had. So that's one thing. But what also happened, and I think that this is for a big part the reason they couldn't innovate, is because of the economic collapse, they became defensive. Instead of offense, they started playing defense. And what made Japan so powerful after the Second World War was that economically they played offense. And from the 90s, they started playing defense. And the next thing is that what happened is that all of the top executives of all the biggest Japanese companies like Panasonic, right, and Toyota. So all of the Japanese CEOs of Panasonic, Toyota, etc., that were the biggest companies in the world at the end of the 90s, the CEOs, they held on. So they still have the same CEOs. But these guys are now 80.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they have the most mature or old, whatever you want to call it, executives worldwide.
Yeah, but in the 90s, they basically had a whole new generation of young Japanese people because they were on the rise. But these CEOs never made place for the young generation to step in. So they had economic collapse, which made them change from offense to defense. And then they had basically an old generation not stepping aside to make room for a new generation, and a new generation of people who are thus stuck in a very hierarchical kind of society where everything is automated and they are expected to be part of that automation in a way, right? Just like you said, they're basically like robots. And so they got stuck. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you also sense that there is a new breed on the horizon there in Japan? Youngsters about to take it over, that a new way for them is coming, or don't you see any fruitful ground for that? What's your...
Well, the feeling that I got, so this is the other thing. I think that so Japan pre-World War II was, of course, a changing country, which it was. You need to realize that Japan was the only Asian that was not being colonized, but a colonizer. Yes. So in a very real sense, prior to World War II, Japan was the only Western country, the only country in Asia that was on its own, autonomously, a part of the New World Order. Yes. That's why Japan in the Second World War made the choice to start expanding and become a colonizer and, go into China, go take Indonesia, all of this. And it became a part of the Axis. Bad choice, you could, after Second World War. But in a real way, it shows the mindset the Japanese had before the World War II. They saw World War II unfolding and they thought, well, look, we got to be part of this one way or the other, right? And they just picked the wrong side. That's really what happened. They just picked the wrong side, right? And so as a result, they got 2 atom bombs thrown on top of them. But this was... I think that the atom bomb saved more lives than they cost, which is not something that a lot of people want to contemplate. But I do think that it really significantly, seriously hurt the Japanese kind of mentality and mindset. Because after Second World War, the Japanese became literally the most expansionist kind of, at least in terms of their nationality in their country, in their culture. Maybe initially in business-wise, they did think bigger. But as a nation, as a people, they weren't trying to take over the world, and you still see that today. So young Japanese people barely go out of the country, barely go to travel, barely go to experience the world, and they tell themselves that they can see the rest of the world through the internet because we got the internet anyway, so they don't need to travel, and they can't leave the country because they need to defend Japan. That's their mindset, right? They need to defend the honor of Japan. They need to keep Japan going, and Japan is stuck and stagnating, so they're just trying to keep it alive and keep it going. But they also do that by maintaining this culture of hierarchical kind of thinking. And if the old guys step aside, the new people don't step in because they're very much about avoiding conflict now, right? So this ties back to this.
They don't like conflict at all.
And I think that ties very much back to their World War II trauma, combined with the culture they already had, where you have to have a lot of respect. And you because even when they were samurai, they were a warrior race and a warrior culture. But even then, they had a way of trying to not very conflict, very kind of subtle in their ways and all of that. So, but it completely kind of transformed into a new kind of really avoiding all forms of conflict as a trauma. This is my personal analysis.
That sounds likely. Yeah, I agree. Maybe you should wrap it up, but I do have one question in my head because and I've not thought it through myself completely. I'm in the process of it. But what can we learn from Japan here in Europe? We really can do something with. So why is it so difficult for us to have that level of solidarity? And why is the other way around for them so difficult to have creativity on a work floor? It's just difficult for me to grasp. So, and what can we do locally, right? So they have only one political party. We have a scattered landscape, like 15 or 17 parties here in the Netherlands. They just fight and shout. They cannot get anything done.
Well, that's such a hard question because so many things tie into that, okay? Like, first of all, Japan is a homogeneous society, right? They've always been like that, but they've only, become kind of more again like that after World War II. Yeah. So that means that they just have an extremely low amount of other ethnic groups and other cultures in there. And you look as a historian, I can only say that, no matter what you believe, historically speaking, the more homogeneous a society is, the easier it is to all have, work towards the same goals. That just makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you're all kind of the same and you think the same way, then you can all agree on things easily, and then you could get things done. And the more you disagree, the harder it becomes to get things done. And so that is something it's very hard to copy in Europe because of the choices of the last half century that we've made.
That's a good point. That's a good point you make.
And even before that, right? Because even now, of course, there's a lot of talk about migration, but even before the current modern migration, we were Europeans, and we literally, you drive 1 hour, 2 hours, be in a different country with different kind of mindset, and different way. I mean, the whole reason the EU got this because the French and the Germans could never agree on anything. so that is an inherent problem that we will, I think, always to some extent have to deal with more than Japanese do right now, at the very least. And so the question is, can we overcome that? That's one.
Just to tie in that single one, and I know, of course, it's a luxury for us to be able to go to Japan, but some way, somehow, more people could experience first. And for sure, I'm going to approach other people on the streets and around me in a different way just by having this experience. And in some way, somehow, sharing that experience is important and dear to me at the moment. So that is, and I'm kind of thinking, how can I expand that and share that? So this...
well, I guess just talk about it.
If you do. So we're going to a second point. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, well, the other things there, and I think I can wrap it up, at least as far as I'm concerned for that, is that another thing to realize is that Japanese culture is religiously rooted in Shintoism and Buddhism. And Shintoism basically is a religion that says, well, everything has a soul. You shoot everything. Right? That's very simplified, but that's what it comes down to. So that means that, for example, even a tree is something that you should treat with respect. You cannot just cut it down, indifferently. And you have that, for generations and generations purveying your culture. They also have ancestor. They believe in the spirits of the ancestors remaining around, that kind of thing. And then they have the Buddhism part. And Buddhism is a religion of loving everything, loving the world, believing that all is one in its very right. And so these are the two things that underlie their culture as well. And so there you see this Asian kind of collectivism thinking, which you also see to some extent in other Asian countries. And I think all of that is very much, tied back to the old religions of Asia, including Buddhism. And then finally, there's the absence of the modern individualism, right, which came from the Enlightenment and how we did things, that they just don't have in the same way that we do. Right? They are much more willing to sacrifice. And of course, that's easily more easily said than done, because the biggest problem in Japan is, of course, the massive social pressure to align with society, to not follow your own individualism, but to do what is expected of you. And that is why
suppress emotion.
Exactly.
You feel and see that on the street as well. That's downside to everything. There's a lot of suppression. Yeah, definitely. This which reminds me, maybe this is a good wrap up as well. I read a book from Tim Franzen. He is a Dutch philosopher and also comedian, stand-up comedian. And his new book is a big recommendation in our time, translated. And there's one thing interesting that I didn't know. He was talking about an idiot. Do you know where the word idiot is stemming from? It's from a Greek word, idiotes. And that stands for somebody who is on his own, who is not living as part of the community so the word idiot stems all the way from that. And that got me thinking as well about what we're now discussing, right? So if you're not part of the wholeness of what we are, then you basically behave like an idiot. I kind of like it.
I kind of like that too. And at the same time, it's also so dangerous, right? I mean, we know that. I mean, this is not the podcast for this, but I think we are right now again in a time in the world where a message gets repeated over and over and over, and everybody starts to agree with it. Even people have no idea why. They just, because other people are saying it, they start repeating it and repeating it and repeating it. And so the masses have an idea, and if you stand against it, you are called an idiot. But just because the masses agree on something doesn't make it true.
No, right. That's how words change over time. Indeed, that's absolutely true. But I always like it to go back to the roots where it's coming from. This was an aha moment for me. So
it's definitely. I love it. I love this. I love that you gave me this nugget of knowledge.
Yeah, for you as an historian.
Yeah, it's gonna live for free in my mind.
Let's talk about another word that a lot of people are using. You already dropped the word bubble. And when I got back and I opened my email and I was reading a lot, I saw a significant increase in people writing and discussing about we are in an AI bubble. This is super dangerous. Yep. The AI bubble, like the .com bubble, and then there's not really a conclusion or anything, but it's the warning finger how bad it all is, and I don't see it like that. And I just wanted to spend some time discussing it with you, what you feel it.
Yeah, a wonderful thing, I think, and it's spot on. I think it's super important that we touch on this. And I've, of course, already given you a little bit of my sense of it. I think there's a few things there. First of all, what does it mean? Bubble, right? People love throwing it around.
I checked. I looked up a definition of it. There are various definitions, but I like this one. A bubble is when prices detach from fundamentals via feedback loops of hype and easy money.
Yeah. Okay, so this is very interesting because this is already so important, right? Because now we have a definition, but this definition of bubble specifically focuses on financial aspect of it. And so simplified, it says people are spending more money on something than is warranted based on the realistic expected future returns. Right? That's how I would simplify that.
Right. For that specific person or investment. Right.
For that specific person or investment. And so to call things a bubble, then first of all, the question becomes, okay, if that's the definition of a bubble, is it only a bubble if it bursts or not? Right? Because the reason we talk about the .com bubble is because it burst. Right? It's because it got completely inflated, and then it said poof, and then overnight, the markets collapsed.
But even that poof, okay, a lot of people went bankrupt, and we got some effect of that. But the internet as a thing itself is extremely successful. So what is poofed here? There is nothing poofed here. The internet was successful. AI will be successful.
Okay. But now we go back to the definition of bubble, because you're absolutely right, of course. But the definition of the bubble does not care about the success of the thing that is invested in. It doesn't speak on the success of the internet over the next decade. Whether the whole world adopted it, whether we went into mobile internet, whether everybody has a smartphone now. It doesn't care about that. It only says that at the end of the 90s, people were investing so much in this technology that at some point people believed that it was overvalued. And because they believed it was overvalued, because looking back now, you could argue that it wasn't. You could perfectly argue that it wasn't. So the only reason the bubble burst is because people at the time believed that it was overvalued. So they stopped investing, and that caused kind of panic. and therefore a financial collapse of the situation. And this then led to a slower progress because less money was streaming into the development of the technology. But you could perfectly argue, looking back now, that it wasn't a bubble at all. That it was perfectly warranted, right? Because the technology did deliver on much more than anybody ever expected at the moment the bubble burst, right?
No, I completely agree with you. Completely, yeah. And I'm more focused on the technology in itself and the success that it can bring in the long term. Rather, and I completely understand that some people and organizations will go bankrupt based on this technology. Everybody wants to get rich quickly. Not everybody can get rich quickly. That's just how it is, right?
No, but there you mentioned something again that's super valuable in this conversation, or important. Rich quickly. Quickly is time. Time. Are we talking about a bubble? On what time frame are we talking about a bubble? Are we talking about the time frame bubble because we're now 4 years into the AI hype and in year 5, suddenly people haven't seen the results that they're expecting? Because if that is the case, I would like to show how our expectations have changed over the recent time. I got something prepped here. So let's go. Yes, here. Everybody probably knows this video already, but...
Please write an essay on the Jurassic period. Oh, of course. Here you are. This is incredible. Thank you. By all means, my pleasure. No, really, like you made the prehistoric age come to life. I'm just happy to help. Okay, undergraduate level article on the energy consumption of AI. This article explores the significant energy demands of artificial intelligence, particularly in training and deploying those large language models. Not quite my style. Let's add some filler. I understand. This piece dives into the massive energy appetite of artificial intelligence, especially when it comes to training and running those hefty large language models. Not what I meant. It's all good. No worries. I don't want you to just repeat the same thing in a different tone. I see now. This article investigates the high energy demands imposed by artificial intelligence with an emphasis on the intensive processes required.
It's so good.
Why do you suppose I just hurled a keyboard at your head, GPT? I don't know. Sure you do. Were you overwording or were you underwording? Overwording? Start again. AI is transforming the way we... AI is innovating how we drive... AI is shaking up the way we create... Overwording or underwording? Underwording. So you do know the difference!
I'm going to pause it there. It keeps going.
I did not see this, but this is just... the metaphor is just great. I love the movie as well, by the way. This is cool. I like it.
Yeah, it's so obviously, it's a meme reference to the movie Whiplash, but I think it perfectly illustrates. And so coming back to bubble, in my personal opinion, when I look at the financial bubbles of the late 2000s and the late 90s, what you see is not per se that the technology didn't deliver on the expectations. It's that we have moving goalposts when it comes to expectations. Right. So
which again is, let me just, which is crazy, right? So we've been moving the goalposts towards us, right? AGI was 2035 something, and now people are expecting AGI with GPT-5 in the release. And then they say GPT-5 sucks.
Exactly. Let's go back what you just said, right? 5 years ago, people believed that the chances of us getting to AGI, artificial general intelligence, within our lifetime was less than 1%. I mean, this is an arbitrary number, but most people believed that it was a ridiculous idea. Yes? Now, we actually have an AI bubble because GPT-5 is not artificial general intelligence yet. Are we fucking crazy?
And meanwhile, 1 billion people are using GPT-5. If you're talking about adoption, because that's also with the hype cycle, right? People have inflated expectations of adoption and usage. Inflated expectations, 1 billion people within 2 years. That is unprecedented in the amount of usage of people do. And maybe some organizations are not getting the things that they dreamed of. But come on, let's get real here. The adoption is amazing.
Hold on, Patrick. Hold on. How many people are using AI models right now to the best of your knowledge estimate? So including ChatGPT, including Gemini, including Grok.
As of now, it's estimated that globally around 1.7 to 1.8 billion people have used AI tools, with about 500 to 600 million engaging daily. For specific models, ChatGPT has around 700 million weekly active users.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there, but...
Yeah, so depending on your definition, I don't feel there's an AI bubble, right? So Yeah, just mark
Exactly.
your investments. Be careful.
Exactly. So is there a bubble? I think you and I would agree that there is no bubble. And as we'll see later in this newsletter, because we're also going over, some quick highlights of incredible AI progress that's been made this summer. But I think there's no real bubble. But I do think that there is a financial bubble in the minds of people involved with this. And the problem here is that this is always a self-fulfilling prophecy, because the moment people start saying there's a bubble, it becomes a bubble and it bursts. So I also believe that within the next, maybe 2 years, we'll definitely see a financial bubble collapse on this. And suddenly, we'll see the stock market getting a hit and we'll see investment dropping again. But I am now already convinced, like you are, Patrick, that the progress will not stop. That will just mean that we go from very fast progress to a plateau, or maybe a period of 1, maybe 2 years of some stagnation and slowing down. But even that was already expected, right?
Right. And also normal, right? The economics and also technology growth goes a little bit in waves, but in the end, it goes all up, right? So,
exactly. Yeah.
So do we or do we not talk about GPT-5 then? Because we just said.
What did you get?
Well, I have to be honest. I saw, of course, the release while I was in Japan, and it automatically. I did use ChatGPT-5 for planning which, by the way, it did a job. It knew exactly where I was in Japan, and I just had the questions and everything from stepping into the subway in this specific station and go to that restaurant. Everything was just spotless. The only thing that I noticed was longer waiting times in GPT-5 compared to 4, what I was using on them. But again, I have not properly tested the differences. Neither did I dive into long reads on the topic. Maybe you had a little bit more time to play with it. I don't know.
Well, the funny thing is that I was in Japan and I was using a eSIM global data from Revolut, which I get with my Revolut. And that most of the time, that basically resulted in me not having access to ChatGPT. So the thing, this is very interesting because it's one eSIM, right? It's one eSIM. But you buy eSIM data, you buy global data, or you buy local data. Right. And so what I did initially is I bought global data. And as soon as you buy global data, somehow the eSIM routes your data, internet, in a way that when ChatGPT is accessed, it doesn't say that you're anyway, it's not clear. And so ChatGPT said you can't use ChatGPT because you're not in a country where it's accessible. So I basically didn't use ChatGPT at all in Japan because I had problems with it the whole time. And I almost exclusively used Google's Gemini and Perplexity. And the funny thing is that I really loved both of those. So, it's a bit tricky. And on Perplexity, I used the basic Perplexity for most of the things. And then when I needed really important answers, I used Grok 4. Because at the time, because GPT-5 came out during my trip to Japan, Grok 4 was the best model there. And I know that there's still people out there that for some reason have some ideological problems with using a product by Elon Musk, which is another discussion, but I don't, because even if you don't like Elon Musk, why would you prefer a model that is guardrailed and moderated heavily, and this is known, versus a model that it may still be to some extent influenced, is much less moderated and guardrailed? I don't know. It's a mystery to me. Yeah. But what we can say, and for those watching that are not totally always following up on AI models, etc. So this is the just some benchmark comparisons. And you see GPT-5 scored a 94.6 on the AIME, 88.4 on the GPQA, SWE bench, right? But the thing I want to point out here, because I don't think it's even useful to go over all the different benchmarks, etc. But I think that look at the numbers. Grok 4 scored a 93, GPT 94.6.
Yeah, so the delta in that intelligence in math is not what I recognize in my daily communication. The style of communicating back to me is what I do recognize. That's why you probably prefer Perplexity or Grok, depending on what type of question. I always use Grok when I want to brainstorm, go creative mode. Then I use Grok. I get better creative answers than I do with ChatGPT. But that's just me.
Yeah, so for me, the reason to choose between things, because Elon recently posted, oh yeah, Grok is the smartest AI out there. And I actually responded, not that Elon ever responds to me, but I responded like, look, dude, at this point, it's potato. Unless a model comes out that is making a significant, step up in terms of performance, Gemini 2.5 Pro, Grok 4, and GPT-5 are all basically ballpark less than 1% difference. So who cares, right? So you might want to go Claude. At least that's what I understand in the ambassadors group, because I do a lot less of that. But for basically everything else, it doesn't really matter what model you use. So what becomes in picking a model? 1, accessibility. 2, how intuitive it is to use. And 3, the features it has. And
of course, within a corporate, how you can train it on your own ethical standards and the data that you want to use, how you want to feed it with.
100%. 100% API access, and how much can you make sure that your data, etc., is safe. And I think that at this point, this is of course where all the disappointment with GPT-5 came from, because that's really what it comes down to at this point. So personally, I think GPT-5 is completely uninteresting. It's great, it's not bad, but it comes down to personal in terms of what is it that you need, what are you looking for.
But I'll be honest, I also then was tripped a little bit by the AI bubble myself. That's weird, right? How have we been looking forward to GPT-5 and look at how we're now discussing it? Wait, just okay, now it was released and a little bit underwhelming. That's basically what we're saying, right?
Yeah, so this is a very tough one, because this goes into why did we get this model? And
continue that thought. Why did we get this model? What do you think?
Yeah, why did we get this model? Well, the question becomes like, was there the option to get something better? Was it on the table, right? And I'm not certain where we are at this point. Like on the one hand, the critics will say, or the skeptics will say, well, look, we ran into a dead end with large language models. But then I would argue that, well, we basically already hit that dead end last year, and then we got reasoning models, right? Because we saw a significant breakthrough and an upgrade, and then we moved forward quite rapidly again. Now, if we play on the pessimistic side with the skeptics, we could say, well, okay, maybe we ran into a little bit of a rut and we're not out of it yet. And nor OpenAI, nor Google or anyone has kind of figured out how to really make that next big move. And they're all working on it. And so in terms, they have on the one hand, their progress and research on really building something significantly better. And on the other, they have their commercial cycles. So they need to come with a new product because they need to drive, because if you do, this is the reality we live in now. If you don't come out every 6 months with a new phone or a new AI model to drive interest again and to have a reason to do your marketing campaign and to get people to buy new subscriptions and to renew, then, right? So these two things exist separate from each other. So the skeptics will say they had nothing, and so they just gave us some bullshit so they can sell more.
Yeah.
Then there's, And then there's the people, me, or maybe, I don't know, that might think, well, maybe they did get something significantly better, but they also directly ran into some really serious dangers. And I think that is absolutely 100% a possible reality. Definitely. If they've made a better model, 1, they might be having trouble guardrailing. 2, even if they guardrail it, it still poses such significant problems because of its intelligence that they can't really roll out to the public. Then, I mean, not even, I simply don't believe
that. I don't believe that is happening, because I think human greed is not withholding that. But it is an interesting scenario that you posed there.
Well, we have to realize that we're now in the Trump era, right? And so don't forget that, maybe it felt like the liberals were far more strict on imposing all kinds of legislation and things like that. But the fact is that Trump is way more unpredictable, and he's much more defensive, right? He's a protectionist. Right, he's protecting the U.S. So if you are Sam Altman and you now have a very significantly superior model, right, and there's even slightest idea that China does not have this, would you release it, risking that Donald Trump the next day comes by stomping by your office and says, okay, this is a national security matter, we are confiscating your model, or I'm banning you from allowing people outside America using this?
Okay, but isn't the whole strategy of all the investment that this Trump is making in getting that superior model for the US?
Oh, yes, but that's exactly the key for the US.
Right.
For
But
the
if
US,
some almost
Trump-
has, then he thinks it goes also to China.
Well, if it's for the US, then in Trump world, that means it's going to go to our defense first. It's going to go to the United States government first. It's going to go to me and us first. And then we will decide when and how much of it we share, even with American citizens and the rest of the world. You have to keep in mind, right? They did this in the 90s, right? GPS technology was invented in the 80s by DARPA and the United States Defense. And they had super, super, super accurate GPS. But they didn't give it to the rest of the world. It was only in 1998, if I'm not mistaken, and there was a movie about this, when this airplane crashed in Japan in the mountains. And there's a movie of them because some of the passengers survived and they ate the dead bodies, right? It was horrible. They had to resort to cannibalism to survive. But it was after that happened and people were saved that President Clinton made an executive order to make the most accurate GPS technology that the United States had available globally. Because he didn't want to allow that to happen again.
Yeah, again, I like the way of thinking. It's also a scenario. Let's just see
I
what's unfolding. Yeah, we don't know.
I don't know, but I want to make sure that people don't jump to conclusions. Because
right.
Yes.
What I can tell you what I expected and what is not delivering in my limited usage of it is that you nicely put, okay, we had large language model, we had reasoning models. What would be the next one? What I was expecting that one is the big hit on multimodality. So the ability to just chat with it and have seamlessly Sora, seamlessly image generation, maybe even audio generation like you have in Level Labs, that OpenAI would swallow these type of subcategories a little bit more with GPT-5 is what somehow was in my expectation. Is that would be another big leap forward, which we and actually it's pretty far from that. That was
but here you have another wonderful potential scenario, because for all of this happen, it needs to be allowed, right? OpenAI ChatGPT would need to have a way to interact with all of your Google Mail, with your Google Docs, with your Google Sheets, or with your Word, or with all of that. And we know that the relationship between OpenAI and Microsoft has soured over the last half year. It's not gotten any better. Copilot is getting pushed. I mean, in the newest Windows Insiders release, you can already have access to the recall feature, which basically remembers everything you ever did on your computer, which was
the recall feature. There it is
yeah,
again.
it's in there. Yeah. Of course, it's been a little quiet around that because when it was first released, people were like, "Oh, they're spying on me to make a screenshot of everything I do," which technically is kind of true, but it's in there, and it's also Copilot, like the new Copilot version in the Insider version right now, can actually see everything you do on your Windows PC and help you with everything.
Yeah.
So Microsoft is pushing for this. So who is it that Microsoft didn't say, well, look, why would we, Sam Altman is clearly not as, he's not sharing just with us. He's now also working at Apple. It did all kinds of stuff. Like, we're not going the way we want to go. Maybe we should be a little bit more restrictive on where we give him access, what we allow him to do, because we don't want to create we don't want to hand everything over to a potential competitor, right? So
let's see. That would be an interesting take if people are indeed holding back for that reason. But
if you've paid attention, Gemini has been, I see almost every week, there's some upgrade to Gemini where it's further integrated. Like, I can now use it to search my email, which wasn't possible a month ago. I can now, there's all kinds of new features. I haven't even been able to look at all of them. I sent some of them in the chat today. Gemini is getting upgraded all the time. It's getting upgraded all the time. It's getting integrated further all the time. It has all kinds of new features all the time that are really cool. Now you can upload images to Gemini and you can only tell it what you want to change about the image. So even something so Google is definitely pushing for a lot of this integration that you're talking about. Yes. But they're doing it very gradually. If you look to Google Studio,
all the labs, that all the types of functionality that they're kind of prepping and then step by step integrating, it's a very smart and
Google
strategy.
did such a good job of catching up because they invented the transformer model. They invented large language models the way they are. Then they got really sidelined or overtaken, and they kind of seemed like out of the race. And now they're really back in saddle, man. We also got to talk about Google DeepMind and the progress there. But yeah.
Well,
anyway.
let's pivot to that anyway, because while we're talking about the AI bubble, you promised a couple of interesting topics, what the promise AI really is. And so we have talked extensively about AlphaFold, but there's an update of AlphaFold, right?
Well, it's funny because you and me discussed this morning, and I said to you, maybe we should also mention AlphaFold. And I said AlphaFold 2, yes? Yeah. And you said, oh, AlphaFold 2. I said, yeah. And then I was like, is it AlphaFold 2? So I went online and I was AlphaFold 2. was already 4 years old. And then I was like, it's AlphaFold 3. And then it turns out AlphaFold 3 is already 2 years old. And so it turns out, it is wonderful. It turns out that we're actually already at AlphaFold 4. So AlphaFold 4 was released on July 24. This is very recent, right? This is very last month. July 24, AlphaFold was unveiled by Google DeepMind. And it is taking the crown as the newest iteration for pushing protein structures prediction to the next level. So it can with pinpoint accuracy, and when I say pinpoint, I mean on a molecular scale level, right? So it can nail protein structures that make it completely viable for experimental research and use and then reconstructing by scientists on an atomic level. So it's like they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff with it now, because now they're using it to start making new medications, these proteins, putting them together. And it's just going super fast. I don't really know what to say on it, because all of it now is into kind of what I read about it is very complicated, but you basically have to be a biologist to kind of understand what they're doing with that stuff right now. But this is...
Well, what I can add to it, if people are thinking about AI bubble and what's the promise of AI and is it only productivity, it is this invention that is now playing out in its fourth version already, allowing all kind of labs across the world, because it's now open sourced, to create proteins, to create new medicines, and that takes time. Creating the medicines takes a little bit of time, but extending life, living longer, living healthier is the promise exactly of what AlphaFold is doing. And even backwards, that's something that you maybe have the videos that you talked about this morning, that if we have that correctly in scope and we understand the fabric of our own biology correctly, we can even reverse aging in some cases.
So scientists just used AI to reverse aging in human cells, and they achieved a 50x better efficiency than the original Nobel Prize winning method. OpenAI partnered with a longevity startup called RetroBio to redesign the Yamanaka factors. These are 4 proteins discovered in 2012 that can reprogram adult cells back to youthful stem cells. The original process rarely works, however. Less than 0.1% of cells convert, and it takes weeks. So the OpenAI team built a model called GPT-4b Micro, and it was trained exclusively on biological data. Unlike traditional methods that test just a few mutations, this AI redesigned entire proteins with hundreds of changes simultaneously. And the results were extraordinary. Over 30% of the AI's protein designs outperformed the originals, compared to the typical success rates below 10%. And the best versions showed 50-fold increases in stem cell markers and dramatically enhanced DNA damage repair. The enhanced proteins consistently reverse key signatures of cellular aging, suggesting they could become powerful tools for regenerative medicine. All in all, this breakthrough demonstrates how specialized AI models could compress decades of biological research into just weeks, which could potentially revolutionize our approach to aging and disease one day.
Yeah, so to summarize that and simplify that, this is just another example, and there are many out right now, where we basically, AI allowed us to leap ahead like 50 or 100 years in terms of our medical capabilities. And the thing that a lot of people forget is that we're not... Like, if you're out there watching this right now, you may be like, well, I still go to my GP doctor and he's still prescribing me paracetamol, so nothing changed, right? Yeah. But there's a delay between these breakthroughs being made and then actually rolling out to the general public, because some processes are not changed by AI. For example, the process by the FDA in the United States or by the European institutions that have to approve these medications to, when they're finished, to be rolled out, those have not been made faster by AI. Which means that it can take 2 to 5 years before these medications get rolled out. But that does mean that in 2 to 5 years, we might suddenly have a massive wave of new medication that cures cancer, basically stops you from aging, allowing you to become 20% older with the first generation. So instead of us just becoming 80 and then dying, we're going to be 100 and we're going to be healthy until 90, right? Stuff like that. And this is really happening right now. And this was a specific GPT trained for it, right? But we just discussed AlphaFold 4. So Google is working on this. OpenAI is working on this. And now to tie it back to the bubble, the AI bubble, right? Yeah. So this is the thing. Even if we have a financial AI bubble, right, these things already happened. These already happened. So this is already in motion, right? These are already results. If
the proteins already discovered, they are locked and
If the AI bubble bursts tomorrow financially and they stop investing, right, then this AI companies might get hit. But the research is, and it's already out of the box. These medications are still going to be rolled out 5 to 10 years from now, no matter what happens, right? Because this will continue. So, and that's why there's no bubble, because it's only a financial thing then in the brains of people.
Exactly. Well put. Hey, and to take it even a step beyond, I did find an interesting link about something called OpenCRISPR-1. We know with CRISPR you can modify your genomes. That is a technology that has been out there, but connected to rational large language models, it's even now better. Even allows you not to find the proteins that nature have created, but to make up completely new proteins ourselves. So rather than fixing things in biology that are known to us, we can create completely new biological things. And I know this is very much into the psychological, are you smoking something, Patrick Rians? But this is absolutely happening at the moment as well, right?
Yeah, and it's very important because we need to make a differentiation here. So CRISPR is the technology that allows us to make cuts in a gene sequence, so we can alter the genes, right? So you can take octopus gene for being able to change colors and put it in the human genome, and then if that baby is born, the baby can change colors. We don't do that because that's eugenics and it's not allowed, but technically that's what you could do. And this is, for example, how they now created the first mRNA virus vaccines against cancer that are being rolled out in the UK, for example, right? Yeah. But OpenCRISPR is basically an AI model that allows you to use an AI to, instead of program code, like you do with Claude, where you make, you're going to vibe code a project, you can vibe code DNA, right? So you use an AI to vibe code
Just say
DNA.
it again. You can vibe code DNA.
You can vibe code DNA, yes. And so this is both one of the coolest things to have happened in our time, and it's also one of the most scary things to happen in our time.
Yeah, it is.
Because if somebody orders, and I've said this before, and I for a long time I thought I should never talk to people about this because maybe I'll give the wrong people ideas if they hear it. But ultimately, this, I don't think it'll matter because that thing's going to come out of the box one way or the other. But if the wrong person orders a CRISPR set allowing him to actual DNA, uses OpenCRISPR-1 to create the DNA sequence that want to create whatever, whether it's glorious or scary. And I'm sure you people can think of some scary things. And then they actually create it. Now that can be done for a few $1,000s in a shed with an internet connection. And that's scary. So when people compare our age now to the atomic bomb, which some, for example, Asa Raskin and Harris, what's his name? Tristan Harris, they've done that. But in that sense, it is very different because an atomic bomb could not be created by anyone because you have to have access to some very specific kind of resources that not everybody can. Yeah. And so this is one of the biggest risks, I think, of AI. It's about being afraid of AI taking over, or Terminators, or even the AI making people redundant or taking our jobs. It's about one crazy person that uses the AI to become superhuman in some way, to do something that was previously only capable or accessible to multinationals or nations, that can now be done by a crazy individual in a shed in the back of their garden.
Yeah. Well, what more can we add? This is indeed the scary part about it, and the whole ethical side and guardrailing that specific is what we need to have, and then tying it back to having a little more solidarity, understanding for each other what we begin with. That is what I want to borrow from the Japanese people, how they deal with it. In my gut feeling, it lowers the chance of idiots doing things like that.
Because we're running out of time and we're going to wrap it up, a few honorable mentions of this summer that I think are important. One, Genie 3, a Google model that allows you to create worlds. So basically, it is an AI that kind of dreams the worlds that you want to explore as you explore them. And it's great because it did something really crazy. In that world, it created a mirror or a window, and through that window, you can see another world. So it can create a world inside a world. So it's basically an AI that is doing Inception, the movie. So good reason to go and watch that movie again. This is super cool stuff because this is the future of the metaverse. 2, AI is translating the human genome. So we mapped the human genome, but even though we did that at the end of the 90s, we still don't understand what all of the human does. And there's a lot of parts of the human genome where we used to think that it was just garbage or wasted DNA that didn't have a function. But now we're discovering that a lot of these parts of our DNA are very important, and there's even epigenetic switches in there that can change in your lifetime, that change things. AI is now actually decoding this and telling us what these these things do, which is super cool. That's 2. 3, Google Earth AI is being created. So Google is mapping every 10 square meters, I think, or 10 square kilometers, I'm not sure, but they're mapping it and then they're summarizing it and they're basically turning that into an AI model. So in a year or so, we will have an AI that is basically representing Earth, and then you can talk to Earth and you can ask it anything you need to know and it can answer you, which is crazy. Just internalize that for a moment.
Yeah, you're dropping something huge now in a minute, and it deserves more attention. Okay, honorable mention, we're going to include it in the newsletter, but we should definitely talk about that because this is a topic that leads to so many philosophical conversations, right? Does the Earth then get a voting right based on whatever information is in there? Right, so that is an interesting one. It's so much more things that are interesting there.
Yeah, so that one. Okay, so 4, Figure 2, the robot, is now actively doing washes and folding towels really effectively. But more importantly, this summer, the first fully autonomous operation was done on a pig. It was a cadaver. It was dead. But the operation, which was a very internal operation, cutting it open, was done completely by AI, and it was done 100% correct. This is a massive breakthrough, massive step. I've said this for the last year. I've said within 10 years, human surgeons will be completely replaced. People said I was crazy, and we've already seen the first 100% successful operation by an AI done. So yeah, there's that. And then finally, there's an AI stethoscope that's been invented, which can recognize heart anomalies in 15 seconds that human doctors could never detect. So that's just some good news on the AI front, because there's so much bad news and people want to say all the bad stuff. And the world is going to be a better place because of AI. Yeah, now we can wrap it up.
I like these honorable mentions, so we should do that more often, right?
Yeah.
Let me wrap up with something that's very close to my heart. This week, my book will be released. It will be in the stores next week. But Friday, we have a release party. We'll also include it in the newsletter. If you want to be part of that, you're very welcome to come to it. It's a very old university building where we do the first presentations. We would love to see some new faces there if possible. And everybody's
welcome.
I'm really looking forward to that. Tomorrow, I will my first versions. I have them in my hand for the first time, so that will be cool.
Yeah. So everybody listening to this, to our newsletter, everybody reading it, come on, you got to be there. You be there, be square. We're going to put the link in the subscription. Be sure to sign up. Come to the book release party. In the future, you're going to be able to say, look, I was there. Maybe it wasn't Elon Musk and it wasn't Ray Kurzweil, but it was Patrick and it was Aragorn. These crazy people. I was there when they released it. And look, it's all come true. And if it isn't like that, then at least, maybe you'll get a nice signature from Patrick.
that at least. So thank you very much for watching, for following us. If you like what we do, please subscribe, share it to everybody. Hope to see you at the book presentation. And how they say it in the Netherlands?
See you later.
Bridging the gap of exponential growth. Patrick and Aragorn share the truth. Join our community, let's innovate. With Innovation Network, create a brighter fate.